If you make me choose between my job and that dog, I'll choose the dog. Every single time. Maya Williams didn't shout it. She didn't have to. Her voice carried with the quiet, firm weight of a woman who'd already made peace with the consequences. She stood tall behind the counter, apron slightly crooked, flour on her cheek, chest rising with barely contained adrenaline. The man in the gray blazer raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "You just did," he said, tapping the edge of his clipboard with a silver pen. Maya's jaw tightened. "Good," she said. "At least we're clear." The Café Pine and Iron, a local favorite tucked between the post office and the church on Main Street, fell into stunned silence. Forks paused midway to mouths. Coffee cups hovered, untouched. From the far corner, an elderly man sat quietly near the window, his spine slightly hunched from years that didn't need explaining. His name was Raymond Carter, though no one in town called him that. Just Ray. A black Marine veteran from the Gulf War. He didn't speak often, didn't linger long. But every Wednesday at 9, Ray showed up. Always with Apollo, the dog, a black lab German shepherd mix with a red vest marked, "Service Dog, Do Not Pet," lay stretched at Ray's feet, his chin resting on one paw. He looked up now, sensing the tension in his companion's shoulders. Ray's hand dropped instinctively to stroke the fur behind Apollo's ears. "You're violating state health code," the inspector repeated, a little louder this time. "No animals in food service areas. That's a public hazard." Maya stepped out from behind the counter, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the linoleum. "Sir," she said, forcing calm into her tone, "Apollo is a registered service dog. He's here with Ray, who served our country long before either of us were handed clipboards or keys to this place." "I don't care what vest that mutt's wearing," the man snapped. "I care about dander, hair, saliva. I care about liability." "You don't care about dignity," Maya replied, quietly but firmly. That was when Deborah Collins walked in. 4-inch heels, a tailored black blazer, a corporate smile so thin it might have been painted on. She didn't need to hear more than the last line. "Maya Williams," she said crisply, approaching like a hammer to glass. "You've just violated franchise health compliance in front of a state official. You're terminated. Effective immediately." Gasps rose from the customers. Someone dropped a spoon. A young woman near the pastry case whispered, "Are you serious?" Ray sat motionless, but his hand trembled slightly around the handle of his cup. Maya didn't flinch, not even a blink. She just turned, eyes scanning the café's quiet haven she'd nurtured for 3 years. The bulletin board full of thank you notes from veterans, the chalkboard that read, "Silent Hour," the picture of her father in uniform framed behind the register. She nodded once to Lena, the young barista frozen behind the espresso machine. "Make sure Ray gets his refill," she said softly. Then, wordlessly, Maya reached up, unfastened her apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. The room held its breath as she pushed open the side door. The sunlight outside was gentle, the kind of golden fall morning where the wind carried hints of burnt leaves and memory. Maya took a step forward, not sure if it was towards something or away. Before we continue the story, drop a like for Maya, the woman who chose compassion over cold rules. Comment 1 if you stand with her. And don't forget to share this video so more people remember that kindness still has a place in this world. But inside, the video had already begun uploading, and in a quiet corner of the internet soon to ripple outward was a story no one expected. A young woman fired for letting a lonely old veteran drink coffee beside the one friend who never left his side. A woman who refused to apologize for kindness. And somewhere not too far from Mason, Alabama, a retired colonel's phone began to buzz. Maya sat in her truck for a long time after leaving the cafe, her fingers wrapped around the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The engine was off, the key still in the ignition. Her apron, now folded with more care than she could explain, rested on the passenger seat beside a half-full thermos of coffee that had long gone cold. She stared out at the quiet street in front of her. Mason wasn't the kind of town that noticed much. The pace here was slow, intentional. But today, everything felt louder. The wind rustled louder through the oaks lining Main Street. The children's laughter from the schoolyard 2 blocks down sounded sharper. Even the squeak of the crossing signal seemed to echo. Her phone buzzed for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Lena. 3 missed calls. A message. Someone filmed it. It's spreading fast. Are you okay? Maya didn't answer. Not yet. What could she say? That she'd been fired for letting a dog lie quietly at a veteran's feet? That she hadn't begged, hadn't argued, hadn't backed down? That a part of her still wasn't sure if she felt bravier just broken? Another buzz. This time, it wasn't Lena. Unknown number. No message. Just a missed call. Then another. And another. She blinked, confused, then finally opened her texts. A video. From one of the customers, Susan Jefferson, the retired librarian who came in every Wednesday for black coffee and crossword puzzles. The video was shaky, but the sound was clear. You make me choose between my job and that dog, I'll choose the dog. The video ended just after she walked out the side door. It had 12,000 views. Maya exhaled. Slow and shallow. The world was watching now, and she hadn't even made it home. The next few hours blurred. She drove, but not to her apartment. Instead, she went to the old park near the river, where her dad used to take her fishing when she was little. She sat on a bench, watching a pair of teenagers throw a frisbee for a golden retriever that barked with uncontainable joy. For a moment, she imagined Apollo doing the same, young, free, without a vest or a burden. Then her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail. A man's voice. Slow, deliberate, southern. Miss Williams, this is Colonel Wesley Gaines. I believe we have a few mutual friends. I saw the footage. I'd like to speak with you. If you're free this afternoon, we're at Fort Greenway, administrative wing. You'll be expected. There was no anger, no urgency, just certainty, like he already knew she'd come. Maya stared at the phone for a long while. Then she stood. Fort Greenway was only 15 minutes away, but crossing that gate felt like stepping into another world. The hum of discipline was in the air, marching drills in the distance, flags snapping in the wind, boots hitting pavement in rhythm. She parked in the visitor's lot, walked up the stone steps with more caution than she let show, and checked in at the front desk. A young soldier escorted her down a long corridor lined with framed photos. Commanders passed, medals, campaign maps. At the end stood a door marked Veteran Transition and Wellness Initiative, Temporary Headquarters. Inside, it was nothing like she expected. No polished desks, no formal office, just folding chairs, whiteboards with faint marker stains, boxes half unpacked. It smelled faintly of coffee and industrial cleaner. And in the middle of it all stood Colonel Gaines. He wasn't in dress blues, just a neatly pressed khaki uniform and polished black shoes. Late 50s, tall, still carrying the posture of someone who expected people to listen when he spoke. His hair was silver, his eyes sharp and kind at the same time. Maya, he said, extending a hand. Thank you for coming. She shook it, her grip firmer than she thought it'd be. You're welcome. I wasn't sure I should. He smiled slightly. And yet, here you are. He gestured to a pair of chairs near the far wall, and they sat. I won't waste your time, he said. What you did this morning, that mattered. She looked away. All I did was serve coffee to a man with a dog. No, he said. You honored something this country forgot. You saw a soldier's humanity when someone else saw a health code violation. Maya's throat tightened. Do you know how rare that is? He asked. You made space. Quiet space. That cafe. It wasn't just coffee. It was peace. It was community. It was sanctuary. She didn't respond right away. Her eyes found a bulletin board across the room half empty, a few scribbled sticky notes, a paper that read, Ideas for weekly meetups. Then she asked, Why am I here, Colonel? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We've been trying to launch this center for 2 years. Red tape, budget delays, staff turnover. But the one thing we've never had was someone who actually knew how to build trust with veterans. I'm not a therapist, Maya said. Exactly, he replied. She blinked. You didn't treat them like patients. You treated them like people. You remembered names. You made space for dogs under tables and silence over noise. You didn't talk. You listened. She swallowed hard. He stood, walked over to a cabinet, pulled out a folder, and handed it to her. A proposal. A draft of what the center could be. At the bottom, Director, Maya Williams, pending offer. She looked up, stunned. I don't even know where to start, she whispered. He smiled. Start where you always have, he said. With a name. and a cup of coffee. Later that night, Maya stood alone in the unfinished room. The ceiling tiles still rattled when the heater kicked on. The lights flickered slightly in one corner, but to her it felt like the beginning. She reached into her bag, pulled out a photo of her father in uniform, and pinned it to the bulletin board. One pushpin. No frame. Just memory. And the first brick in whatever this was going to become. The next morning, Maya stood outside the Pine and Iron Café, her fingers tightening around the strap of her tote bag. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not officially. Not after being fired in front of a room full of regulars. But something had pulled her back. Something quiet, insistent, and unshakable. The storefront hadn't changed. The chalkboard still read, "Silent Hour, Wednesdays, 9 a.m." The flag above the door swayed gently in the morning breeze. She could see Lena inside, arranging cups behind the counter like she had every morning since Maya first trained her 2 years ago. Maya hesitated, then opened the door. The bell jingled. Every head turned. Lena blinked. "Maya? I'm not here to cause trouble," Maya said quickly, raising one hand. "Just need a coffee." There was a pause, thick, uncertain. Then Lena smiled softly. "Then you know where the good mugs are." "Oh." Maya walked to the back cabinet, pulled out a worn blue ceramic cup with a tiny chip on the rim. It used to be her favorite. The one she never gave to customers, only to friends or to veterans who'd had a rough day. She poured the coffee herself. Strong, black, no sugar. Ray sat in the corner booth, same seat as always. Apollo lay beneath him, tail twitching once in recognition. Ray's eyes followed Maya across the room. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. She slid into the booth across from him without asking, set her mug down, took a long sip. "You come back to get your job?" Ray asked, voice low, rough from years of smoke and silence. "No," Maya said. "I came back to see if the world was still turning." Ray chuckled just once. "Still turns, just not always in the right direction." They sat for a moment, neither speaking. "Finally," Maya said, "the military wants me to run something. A wellness center. For vets." Ray's brow raised slightly. "You saying yes?" "I don't know yet." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Why not?" Maya hesitated. "Because I'm not sure I'm strong enough." Ray looked down at Apollo, then back at her. "You ever see a service dog hesitate?" "No," she said. "Exactly," he muttered. "Dog doesn't think about whether he's qualified. He just stands when you can't. That's what you did." Maya swallowed hard. Just then, Lena walked over. "Hey, someone dropped this off for you." She handed Maya a small envelope. No name, just the words, "To the one who didn't flinch." Inside was a note, handwritten, careful block letters. "I was at the cafe that day. I've been sitting in that corner for 3 months. Never said a word. Couldn't. My voice doesn't work the way it used to know since Fallujah. But when you told that inspector, 'I choose the dog,' something broke open. You saw us. Thank you." Beneath it, just an initial. T. Maya blinked quickly, folded the note, and tucked it inside her bag. Lena cleared her throat. "Also, you might want to check your phone. It's been buzzing for 20 minutes. Maya reached for her phone, still on silent, and opened the notifications. 27 messages, 3 voicemails, and 1 trending video. Her video, the moment with Ray and Apollo, her standing up, her walking out, now captioned, "The woman who chose dignity." Over 60,000 views. The comment section was full. Vets, families, strangers, stories about dogs, about kindness, about moments when no one stood up, and the one time someone finally did. Ray reached for his cup and said without looking at her, "So, you still not sure?" Maya smiled faintly. "I think I'm getting there." Later that day, she drove back to Fort Greenway not with hesitation, but with quiet resolve. She wore jeans, boots, and the same soft flannel she'd worn when she'd first opened Pine and Iron 3 years ago. Colonel Gaines was waiting for her on the front steps of the new center. He looked at her without speaking for a moment, as if trying to measure what had changed. "I went back," Maya said before he could speak. "To the cafe, to Ray, and I think I'm ready." Gaines nodded once. "Good, because we've already had 7 veterans walk through that door since yesterday. They're not looking for therapy. They're looking for someone who won't flinch. Inside, the space still smelled like fresh paint and uncertainty, but already, the energy was shifting. The bulletin board Maya had glanced at the day before was now pinned with post-its. Group walk Thursdays. Need ride to VA hospital. Looking for chess partner. She walked slowly to the coffee table. A new pot was brewing. Next to it, someone had placed an empty jar labeled, "Tell me something you miss." She opened her notebook. The same one she used at the café. Names. Notes. Favorite drinks. Birthdays. She turned a fresh page and wrote one line. This is where it begins again. Just before sunset, a new face appeared. A young woman mid-20s, wearing long sleeves despite the warm air. Scars peeked from beneath the fabric. A golden retriever puppy tugged gently on her leash. She stood at the entrance, nervous, shifting her weight. Maya walked over, kneeling beside the dog. Beautiful pup. New? He's in training, the woman whispered. For me. What's his name? Marble. Maya smiled. I'm Maya. Welcome. You don't have to say anything if you don't want. Just be here. The woman nodded, eyes brimming. Thank you. Later, as Maya watched her settle onto a floor cushion, Marble curled up beside her. She felt something settle in her own chest. Not certainty, but peace. The first thread of something sacred being woven. That night, alone in the stillness of the center, Maya hung a small wooden sign on the wall beside the front door. Carved letters, simple and true. This house serves more than coffee. It serves honor. It started with a sound. Not loud, not sudden, more like a distant murmur. A low rumble that stirred the air just enough to make the windows of the new wellness center tremble in their frames. Maya paused mid-step near the kitchenette, a mug in her hand, head tilting toward the noise. At first, she thought it was thunder, but the sky outside was perfectly clear. Then came the rhythmic growl of tires on asphalt. Heavy, coordinated, not one vehicle, but several. Maya set the mug down, walked slowly to the front entrance, and pushed open the door. Across the quiet lot, emerging from the tree-lined road that curved past the old supply depot, were 4 military Humvees, their engines humming like war drums. They rolled forward in tight formation, clean, powerful, unmistakable. Behind Maya, the few veterans already inside the center drifted to the windows. A couple stood. One man, Vietnam era, with a cane and quiet eyes, removed his hat out of habit. The Humvees pulled into the lot one by one, engines idling like restrained thunder. Their doors opened in unison. And then, he stepped out. Colonel Wesley Gaines, dressed not in khaki but in full Marine Corps dress blues. His posture rigid, his gloves white and pressed flat at his sides. Behind him, a small formation of uniformed Marines filed out with sharp precision. No one said a word. They didn't need to. Maya stepped outside, her heartbeat steady now, despite the unmistakable weight of the moment. Gaines approached alone. He paused 3 feet from her, eyes unreadable. Maya Williams, he said evenly. This community owes you more than coffee. Maya blinked, caught off guard. Sir? He turned slightly, gesturing to the building behind her. This place exists because you refused to apologize for decency, because you didn't hesitate. She lowered her eyes, then looked back up. I didn't know anyone was watching. You didn't need to, he replied. That's what made it real. Behind them, the other Marines moved forward, not marching, but purposeful. 2 entered the building. A moment later, Maya heard a soft scrape, the sound of something being pulled from the wall. She turned and saw them carefully removing the temporary printed banner that had been hung above the front desk. Veteran Transition and Wellness Initiative. In its place, they hung a new sign, handcrafted in burnished wood with hand-painted lettering. The Williams Center, a place to stand. A hush fell over the onlookers inside. One older veteran near the coffee pot began to cry quietly, dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. Maya's throat tightened. Colonel, I never asked for this. Gaines nodded. That's exactly why you deserve it. Another Marine approached, handing Maya a small box. Inside was a folded American flag, a simple brass plaque engraved with her name, and a card that read, in recognition of service not rendered in uniform, but in principle, for leadership without rank, and courage without hesitation. Maya stared at it for a long moment before quietly whispering, "This should be for the veterans, not for me." Gaines didn't smile, but his voice softened. "You're not being honored instead of them. You're being honored because you never forgot them." The Marines didn't linger. Within minutes, they'd completed the changeover, nodded respectfully to those inside, and filed back into their vehicles with quiet efficiency. Before he returned to his Humvee, Gaines turned one last time. "By the way," he said, pulling something from his coat, "we're expecting more guests next week. A few folks from Washington. They want to observe what you've built." Maya stared at the envelope in his hand. "They're considering making this place the national pilot model." The envelope was light. The responsibility inside it felt massive. She didn't speak. She simply nodded. As the Humvees rumbled away, Maya turned to find Lena standing just inside the door, her mouth slightly open. "What the heck just happened?" Lena whispered. Maya exhaled. "We've just been made official." The rest of the day passed in a strange calm. A quiet reverence hung in the air. Veterans came and went, pausing a little longer near the new sign, lingering in the halls. One man left a medal on the windowsill with a note, "For the house that made me feel human again." Ray showed up late in the afternoon, Apollo by his side as always. He stopped just outside the doorway, took in the new lettering, and grunted softly. "Looks good," he said. "Little fancy, but good." Maya smiled. "You doing okay?" Ray nodded. "Better now." He stepped inside and, for the first time, didn't head straight to his usual corner. Instead, he made a slow walk along the photo wall, studying the growing collage of snapshot smiling faces, folded flags, scribbled notes, dogs lying beneath tables, coffee cups half full. Then he pulled something from his jacket pocket. A photo slightly faded, the edges worn. A younger Ray in uniform, standing with 3 other Marines. One had his arm slung over Ray's shoulder. They were laughing. "Free." Ray looked at Maya. "Mind if I add this?" She blinked. "You're asking me? Your name's on the wall now." Maya didn't speak, just stepped forward, took the photo, and pinned it beside a picture of Tiffany sketching with marble curled at her feet. Ray nodded once. "Thank you." That night, after the doors had closed and the last car pulled from the lot, Maya sat alone in the main room. The overhead lights dimmed. Just the amber glow of a desk lamp lit the space. She opened her notebook and turned to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote, "Day 1 of the Williams Center," then paused, and beneath that, wrote, "Not just a place to heal, a place to be heard." She closed the book. The air smelled faintly of pine cleaner and coffee. And outside, under the stars, the sign above the door caught the moonlight. A place to stand, a place where dignity wasn't optional, a place built not by orders but by choice. 2 days after the sign was changed, the first letter arrived. It came folded in thirds, tucked inside a plain white envelope addressed simply to the Williams Center, Mason, Alabama. No sender, no return address. Maya unfolded it at the front desk while sipping her second cup of black coffee. The handwriting was clean, practiced someone who'd written under pressure before. "Dear Miss Williams, I saw the video. I've seen a lot of videos over the years, most of them loud, angry, fleeting. But yours was quiet, unshakable, and it didn't ask for attention. That's why I couldn't stop thinking about it. I haven't set foot on a base since 2014. Too many ghosts, too many damn questions I couldn't answer. But I've watched what you're building, and I think, maybe I could try. Maybe I could walk through your door. I'll be there Wednesday. A." Maya read it twice, then set it down beside her notebook. She looked around the center, the soft sounds of a broom sweeping in the hallway, the distant hum of Lena preparing lunch trays for the veterans who preferred to eat in silence, the gentle snore of Apollo curled under Ray's chair. There was no ceremony here, just rhythm, and that's what made it work. By mid-morning, 3 new visitors had arrived, 2 men in their 50s and a woman in her late 30s with cautious eyes and a K9 vest slung over her shoulder. They didn't sign in. They just nodded, found their corners, and sat. Maya didn't press. She just made sure the coffee pot stayed full. At 1:17 p.m., the door opened and a figure stepped inside. Broad shoulders, close-cut hair, faded denim jacket over military-issue khakis. His walk was careful, like someone who had trained not to limp even when it hurt. His eyes scanned the room fast, then softened. "I'm A," he said quietly. "From the letter." Maya stood, nodded once. "Welcome. No paperwork, no agenda. Just come as you are." He offered a short laugh. "I forgot what that even means." Maya gestured to a cluster of chairs near the back, next to a low shelf with puzzle boxes, decks of cards, and worn-out paperbacks. "That corner stays quiet if you need it. The sun hits it just right in the afternoon." Sat down without another word. Later that day, Tiffany Rios arrived with marble. She'd been coming in more regularly now, always carrying her sketchbook, always sitting in the same spot by the back window. Sometimes she sketched in silence. Other times, she handed Maya little pages with drawings on them, images of hands, folded flags, dogs sleeping beneath chairs. Today, she handed Maya something different. It was a sketch of the new front sign, the Williams Center, with 4 figures beneath it: Maya, Ray, Tiffany, and Apollo, all drawn from behind. No faces, just posture. "I hope it's okay," Tiffany said, cheeks reddening. I wanted to draw how it feels here, not what it looks like." Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. "It's more than okay." That evening, as they closed up, Lena lingered behind. She leaned against the counter, her apron still dusted with sugar from the brownies she'd made earlier. "You know the Army sent a press inquiry today?" Maya blinked. "To us?" Lena nodded. "To the center. Someone from the Department of Veterans Affairs wants to schedule a visit. Apparently, the colonel kept his word. He's recommending us for national replication." Maya let the words settle, then shook her head slowly. "I didn't even want to be in charge of anything." "That's probably why you're doing it right," Lena said. Maya smiled, but quietly. "I'm not a therapist. I'm not certified in anything." Lena shrugged. "Yeah, but you're here, and half the people walking through that door, they're not looking for someone with a diploma. They're looking for someone who doesn't flinch." Maya turned off the last light. "Let's hope that's enough." The next morning, the center buzzed early. Word had spread about the new name, about the sketch wall, the puzzle station, the Tuesday music hour someone had spontaneously started in the back hallway with a beat-up guitar. And then came the pushback. Midway through breakfast service, a man in a gray suit arrived. Sharp tie, leather briefcase. His name was Carson Webb, a senior policy consultant from the Alabama State Department of Health. "Miss Williams," he said, flashing credentials, "may I speak with you privately?" Maya led him to the side office, still half empty of furniture. He didn't sit. "We've received some concern," he began, "about the current administration of this facility. Specifically, your lack of formal qualifications." Maya remained still. "I'm not licensed in counseling. I've never claimed to be. And yet you're operating a wellness initiative without medical staff oversight. We're not offering treatment. We're offering space." Webb removed a paper from his briefcase. "Nevertheless, oversight boards are involved now. An audit is being scheduled. If you're found non-compliant, will you shut us down?" Webb paused. "That's not my decision. But we do advise caution. The media attention may be helping you now, but one wrong step and this becomes a liability." Maya nodded slowly. "Thank you for the warning." After he left, she sat down at her desk and stared at her notebook. Under today's date, she wrote, "The price of peace is vigilance." Ray stepped in without knocking. Saw the suit leave. "Trouble?" "Maybe." "You gonna fold?" Maya looked up. "No." He nodded once, then handed her something, a silver star medal in a glass case. "I want this on the shelf out there. Not for me. For what this place reminds me of." She didn't ask questions, just accepted the gift. That night, she added another quote to the wall beside the photo collage. Tiffany had lettered it carefully, in soft pencil. "Dignity doesn't come with a license. It comes with how you show up." Maya traced the words with her finger. The center was being watched now. By media, by government, by people who wanted to replicate it, and people who wanted to regulate it. But in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the man asleep on the couch in the corner, his dog tucked beneath his knees. What mattered was that he felt safe enough to sleep. That was the real victory. And Maya knew she'd defend that space with everything she had. The audit team arrived on a Tuesday morning, right as the first pot of coffee finished brewing. 3 men and 1 woman stepped out of a black government SUV, their suits crisp, their expressions unreadable. Maya watched from the front window, notebook clutched tightly to her chest. "They're here," Lena said quietly, standing beside her, hands still damp from rinsing out mugs. "Yeah," Maya murmured, already walking toward the door. "Time to find out if heart counts for anything in paperwork." The lead auditor introduced himself as Ronald Devlin, early 50s, wire-frame glasses, eyes that skimmed the room like he was always running numbers. He shook Maya's hand politely but without warmth. "We're not here to interrupt operations," he said. "Just observe, review procedures, assess risk and compliance." Maya nodded. "Of course, you'll have full access." Behind her, Ray stood from his usual chair in the corner and offered a nod to the auditors, not friendly, not hostile, just measured. Apollo stayed seated, tail curled, gaze unmoving. The atmosphere in the center, normally easy like worn denim, had stiffened. The audit began with questions, hours of them. What kind of mental health support was offered? What training did staff have? Were there any recorded incidents? Any medication administration? Were animals properly certified? Maya answered each as directly as she could. No. They didn't offer treatment, they offered space. No. She wasn't a therapist, but no one came expecting one. Yes, the service animals were legitimate. No, there hadn't been any violent episodes, just one quiet panic attack in the restroom, de-escalated with nothing but a cup of peppermint tea and a deep breath. Devlin made notes, dozens of them. The others took photos, checked water filtration systems, fire exits, sanitation logs. At one point, a younger veteran named Luis, barely 30, leaned toward Ray and muttered, "This feels like school inspection day. If school also held your soul." Ray grunted in reply. "They don't know what they're looking for. They're hunting ghosts with calculators." At lunch, the auditors sat at a table in the far corner, eating quietly from brown paper bags. Maya didn't sit with them. She circulated like usual, refilling mugs, asking if anyone needed anything. She noticed Tiffany quietly sketching again, her lines slower, more deliberate than usual. After lunch, Devlin requested a private interview with Maya. They sat across from each other in the small side office. A legal pad separated them like a wall. "You built something people believe in," he began. "That's clear." "Thank you," Maya said, cautious. "But belief doesn't equal qualification," he added. "There are concerns. Your role here, your authority lacks formal endorsement." I never pretended to be something I'm not," Maya said. "That's part of the problem," Devlin replied. Maya folded her hands in her lap. "I'd rather be unlicensed and honest than certified and distant." Devlin tilted his head. "And what happens if someone here spirals? If trauma resurfaces and you're not equipped to handle it?" "I sit with them," she said simply. "I don't fix it. I don't diagnose. I stay. That's what they need. Presence." Devlin scribbled something, then looked up. "Do you have any certifications at all?" "I have names," she answered. "I know who avoids the 4th of July because of fireworks. I know who cries in the supply closet when the music gets too loud. I know who hasn't hugged anyone since Iraq and who still carries their brother's dog tags in their shoe." He didn't respond right away, just studied her. "Noted," he said eventually. When he stood to leave, he didn't shake her hand this time, just nodded once and stepped into the hallway. That evening, after the auditors left, silence returned, heavier than usual. Maya sat in the main room long after the lights were off, the soft hum of the exit sign the only sound in the dark. She rubbed her thumb along the spine of her notebook, heart pounding not from fear, but from the unknown. She heard movement. Ray stepped into view, his boots soft on the floor. He didn't say anything at first. Then, "You did good." "I don't know if it's enough," Maya replied. Ray pulled something from his jacket, a folded envelope, old, edges worn. "I want you to read this." She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten in slow, uncertain script. "Raymond, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it home. Don't be angry. I chose this. But promise me something. When you get back, find somewhere that reminds you who you are. A quiet place, with good people. And stay there long enough to let someone care about you. Because if anyone deserves peace, it's you. Marcus." Maya looked up, eyes wide. "Your brother?" she asked softly. Ray nodded. He died in Kandahar. I never showed this to anyone. Until now. Why me? He looked straight at her. Because this place. This is what he meant. And because you made it real. Maya felt her throat close. She folded the letter gently, as if it might shatter, and handed it back. Ray didn't take it. It's yours now, he said. Later that night, she placed the letter in the frame behind the front desk, next to Tiffany's sketch of the center and the quote wall. Underneath, she pinned a new card, handwritten. Legacy isn't what we build for ourselves. It's what we protect in others. That night, for the first time in weeks, Maya allowed herself to cry. Not from fear, but from knowing no matter what the audit found, the mission had already begun, something no paperwork could undo. And some things, once made real, couldn't be shut down. The official letter arrived 3 days later. Maya found it in the center's mailbox, tucked between a flyer for a church potluck and a VA newsletter. The envelope bore the seal of the Department of Health and Human Services. She stood in the kitchen with it pressed to her chest for almost 5 minutes before finally opening it. It wasn't long, just 3 paragraphs. The audit was complete. The findings were non-critical, no violations requiring closure. However, the letter included strong recommendations for administrative adjustments, oversight partnership, and possible formal training for Maya if she intended to stay on as director. She read it twice, then a third time, then slowly slid the letter onto the counter. A breath escaped her lips, half relief, half something else. They're not shutting us down, she said quietly. Lena, who had just walked in with a tray of blueberry muffins, stopped mid-step. Wait, what? Maya looked up. We're still standing. Lena dropped the tray on the nearest table and let out a whoop that echoed down the hallway. Somewhere in the back, Tiffany cheered, and someone began clapping. It wasn't loud. It wasn't choreographed. It was real, spontaneous, grateful, raw. Ray stood from his usual spot and muttered, "Told you. Ghost hunters with calculators never win against people who show up." Maya chuckled, shaking her head. "You never said that." Ray raised a brow. "Well, I thought it." That evening, Colonel Gaines returned. This time, he wasn't in uniform. Just a dark polo, khaki pants, and the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need medals. He brought a guest with him, a woman in her 60s, sharp eyes behind reading glasses, clipboard in hand. "This is Deborah Schaefer," he said. "ILA Regional Development Coordinator. She's overseeing the National Pilot Program rollout. Thought she should see what all the fuss is about." Deborah extended her hand. "You're younger than I expected." Maya smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." They toured the center. Deborah took notes, asked questions, occasionally paused to study the photo wall or the community board. She watched Tiffany sketching near the window. Watched Luis teach a younger vet how to shuffle cards with one hand. Watched Ray refill someone's mug without being asked. "I've worked in this field for 31 years, she said at the end. "I've seen clinics with multi-million-dollar budgets that didn't have what this place does." "And what's that?" Maya asked. "Trust," Deborah said simply. Then she handed Maya a second envelope, this one navy blue with a gold seal. Maya opened it slowly. Inside, an invitation to speak at the upcoming National Veterans Advocacy Conference in Washington, D.C. It was addressed to Director Maya Williams, the Williams Center for Veteran Wellness. She stared at it in disbelief. Gaines placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not just running a center anymore. You're setting a standard." "I don't know what to say," Maya whispered. "Say yes," he replied. "Then keep doing exactly what you've been doing." After the colonel and Deborah left, Maya sat on the front steps, watching dusk settle over Mason. The street lamps buzzed to life. Fireflies blinked between branches. Somewhere down the block, a child laughed. She looked down at the invitation again, then whispered, "I didn't ask for this." But deep down, she knew it had found her because she hadn't asked, because she had simply stood when others wouldn't. 2 weeks later, she boarded her first flight in years. Ray insisted on driving her to the airport. Apollo curled up in the back seat. "Speech ready?" he asked as they pulled into the drop-off lane. Maya glanced at her worn leather notebook. "Nope." He smirked. "Good. Then maybe it'll actually matter." She hugged him at the curb. Apollo licked her hand. The ballroom in D.C. was bigger than she imagined. Chandeliers, velvet drapes, cameras, and polished wood podiums. Her name flashed on a digital banner in elegant serif font. People in uniforms and suits filled every row. Maya stepped up to the microphone with her heart in her throat. She glanced down at her notes, then closed the book. "I was never supposed to be here," she began, her voice small but steady. "I ran a cafe. I poured coffee. I made room for silence. And somehow, that became a mission." She paused, letting the stillness breathe. "I didn't fix anyone. I didn't save anyone. But I stayed. I stayed when someone needed company more than advice. I stayed when others turned away. And I built a place that said, 'You don't have to be okay today.'" People leaned in. Some wiped at their eyes. Some just nodded slow, knowing. "We talk a lot about service," she continued. "But the deepest kind? It doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears an apron. Sometimes it just sits beside a veteran and refills their coffee without asking why their hands are shaking." More nods. More silence. "I'm not a general. I'm not a doctor. I'm just someone who believes that dignity is a daily act. And this center? It's proof that community isn't built with rules. It's built with presence." When she finished, the applause came like a wave, slow, then rising, then full. Ray stood in the back, his silver star pinned to his chest, expression unreadable. But Maya saw it, the nod. Just one. Later that night, alone in her hotel room, Maya sat by the window, the city lights twinkling beneath her. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper, Ray's letter from his brother. She read it again, then closed her eyes. This was never about her. It was always about them. And now, the whole country was watching. Not to see her perform, but to see if a small cafe heart could live inside a national structure. She whispered into the night, "I'll protect it. Every day." And with that promise, Maya Williams, former barista, accidental advocate, became a quiet force on a national stage, still pouring coffee, still showing up, still choosing the dog every single time. When Maya returned to Mason, the first thing she noticed wasn't the welcome home sign someone had taped to the front door of the Williams Center. It wasn't the fresh flowers sitting on her desk, or even the stack of letters from veterans across the country who'd watched her speech online. It was the silence, the kind of quiet that only lives in places built on trust. She stepped inside, the familiar scent of coffee, paper, and pine cleaner instantly wrapping around her like a worn blanket. Ray was sitting in his usual chair in the corner, flipping slowly through the latest edition of the Veterans Herald. Apollo lifted his head and gave a soft thump of his tail on the floor. "You're early," Ray said without looking up. "We figured the government types would keep you another day." "I missed home," Maya replied. Ray folded the paper. "Then welcome back to the only home where half the staff knows your trauma history and still lets you skip small talk." She laughed under her breath, heart loosening. "Anything happen while I was gone?" "A few things," Lena said, appearing from the hallway, her hair pulled back in a messy bun and a smudge of flour across her cheek. "Tiffany finished a mural. It's on the south wall, you need to see it. Oh, and some guy from the state left a voicemail. Something about funding renewal and a brunch." Maya blinked. "Did he say brunch?" Lena shrugged. "Apparently, we're fancy now." Tiffany's mural stopped Maya in her tracks. It spanned nearly the entire wall, drawn in charcoal and faded pastel. It showed the outline of a cafe turning into the shape of a home, then into a set of open arms. There were no faces, just silhouettes of men and women, young and old, each walking through a door. Some were limping, some had dogs, some had shadows taller than they were, but they were all walking towards something warm. Above it, in delicate handwriting, was one sentence: "Somewhere to stand, somewhere to stay." Maya felt tears rise unexpectedly. When she turned around, Tiffany was standing behind her, sketchbook in hand. "I hope it's okay," Tiffany whispered. "It's beautiful," Maya said. "It's us." That afternoon, a man appeared in the lobby Maya had never seen before. Late 40s, light stubble, wearing a veteran ball cap low over his eyes. He stood with both hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on the mural. Maya approached slowly. "You looking for someone?" The man didn't look at her at first. Then, "Saw your speech." She nodded gently. "My brother didn't come back. Afghanistan, 2009, he said. But I did, and I haven't known what to do with that since." Maya didn't fill the silence. Just waited. He continued. I've sat in my truck every Wednesday morning for 3 months, watching people walk in here. Always thought, I'm not ready. I'm not worthy. You're here now, she said. I don't want a therapist. We don't have any. I don't want to talk. You don't have to. He glanced over. Then what do you offer? She looked him in the eye and answered with the truth. Company. He nodded once, then sat down in the chair closest to the door, staring ahead like he might run. But he didn't. Ray wandered by a few minutes later and placed a cup of coffee on the table in front of the man without a word. Apollo curled up beside the chair. The man lowered his eyes. His hand reached down, touched fur, stayed there. That evening, Maya updated the quote board near the kitchen. She erased a fading line and wrote in new chalk. Healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just walks in and sits down. By the end of the week, the Williams Center had received letters from veterans groups in 6 states requesting blueprints for duplication. Colonel Gaines emailed to say the National Board had approved Maya's center as the first official model of peer-led, present-centered veteran care in the country. The words sounded clinical, but Maya knew better. It wasn't about models, it was about moments. That Sunday, she returned to the Pine and Iron Café for the first time since she was fired. It had changed. The lighting was different. The chalkboard was gone. The staff wore new uniforms. But near the register, someone had hung a framed photogranny and off-centered of Maya handing a cup of coffee to Ray, Apollo underfoot. And beneath it, a small plaque read, "She chose the dog, and by doing so, reminded the rest of us how to choose each other." Maya didn't cry. She just stood there for a long time, her reflection caught in the glass of her own memory. When she left, she took nothing with her, not even a souvenir. She had something better now. Back at the center, Lena was cleaning up, music playing softly from the corner speaker. Tiffany was sketching again. Ray and the new guy were sitting in silence, both sipping coffee, both not saying a word. Maya walked into her office, pulled out her notebook, and turned to the next blank page. At the top, she wrote, Chapter 8, Still Standing. Then beneath it, they came, they stayed, and they found each other again. That night, she sat by the window of the center alone, watching the streetlights flicker across the sidewalk. A breeze stirred the curtain. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt something powerful settle in her chestnut peace. Not triumph, but belonging. The kind you don't have to earn, only protect. The sun had just begun to rise over Mason when Maya unlocked the front door of the Williams Center for what she thought would be another ordinary Wednesday. The light came in soft and gold, slanting across the worn floorboards and casting long shadows on the mural Tiffany had drawn. It was quiet too early for Ray or Tiffany or even Lenabut, the kind of quiet that held promise instead of loneliness. She moved through the space slowly, flicking on lights, straightening chairs, refilling the coffee machine with practiced care. On the bulletin board near the entrance, someone had pinned a new index card without a name. It read, "This place made me stop shaking." Maya stood there for a moment, staring at those 6 words. So simple, so powerful. A whole journey distilled into one sentence. That's what the Williams Center had become, an archive of lives rediscovered in silence. By 8 a.m., the center was alive again. Lena arrived first, carrying a tray of cinnamon rolls and still wearing one slipper on her left foot. "Don't judge me," she muttered. My alarm forgot we're professionals now. Ray came next, with Apollo bounding just ahead, tail wagging like a metronome for his calm steps. Tiffany followed, carrying a fresh sketchbook, and Luis brought in a small Bluetooth speaker and started playing soft jazz from the lobby window. Then came something none of them expected. A convoy of 4 SUVs pulled into the lot. Not military Humvees this time, these were sleek, black vehicles, windows tinted, state license plates. Out of the lead car stepped Colonel Gaines, in uniform again. Behind him were 2 men in dark suits, and a woman wearing a navy blazer with a Department of Veterans Affairs pin on her collar. Maya stepped out to meet them. "I thought the audit was over," she said, trying not to let her nerves rise. Gaines smiled slightly. "It is. This isn't an inspection, Maya. This is something else." The woman extended her hand. "Jessica Monroe. I'm with the Department of Defense Veteran Engagement Task Force. I watched your speech. And then I visited 3 other centers. None of them felt like this. Maya blinked. Like, what? Like a place someone built with their hands, not a grant proposal. Jessica gestured toward the building. We'd like to talk inside. They sat in the main gathering room, Maya on the couch, Jessica across from her, Gaines standing nearby like a quiet endorsement. The 2 suited men flanked the walls, taking quiet notes. We want to fund 5 more centers, Jessica said, modeled directly after this one. Your name, your approach, your philosophy. Maya sat very still. We don't want to copy the decor, Jessica continued. We want to replicate the soul, and we want you officially as national program consultant, not instead of running the Williams Center. In addition to it, you'd train the directors, guide the staff, help them understand that this isn't about therapy or treatment, it's about presence. Maya opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She glanced toward the mural, toward the quote board, toward the veterans who had begun to gather nearby, watching through the doorway without interrupting. What happens here, Maya said slowly, can't be taught in a manual. We're not asking for a manual, Jessica replied. We're asking for a mentor. Ray stepped into the room then, walking up behind Maya, setting a mug of coffee on the table in front of her. He looked at Jessica and said, she won't sell this place's soul for a paycheck. I wouldn't ask her to, Jessica said. Maya looked down at the steam rising from the mug. I didn't build this to scale it. I built it because I didn't know how else to honor the people I served coffee to for 6 years. And now, Gaines said softly, you can honor more. It wasn't a flashy moment. There were no press cameras, no applause, just a quiet question, and the understanding that what she said next would ripple. She nodded. One small movement. I'll do it, Maya said. Jessica extended the formal paperwork. We'll start planning next month. You'll help design every step, but Mason stays yours. This stays the heartbeat. After they left, the room erupted with energy. Tiffany hugged her tight. Louise played a celebratory Miles Davis track, and Lena baked another tray of cinnamon rolls and insisted they be called Victory Swirls from now on. Ray leaned back in his chair, Apollo asleep at his feet, and grumbled, guess we're official now. Maya laughed, shaking her head. Ray, we've been official since the day you didn't leave. That night, Maya sat alone in the main room again. She pulled out her notebook and opened to the last page. Then she flipped it shut. There were no more blank pages. She placed it on the shelf beside the silver star Ray had given her, the folded flag from Colonel Gaines, the anonymous letters and thank you cards. And then she opened a new notebook. On the first page, she wrote, Chapter 9, The Work Continues. Then underneath, there's no finish line for dignity, only doorways, and hands ready to hold them open. She left the notebook on her desk and stepped outside into the warm Mason night. The center lights glowed behind her like a lantern. On the sidewalk, someone had used chalk to draw a heart around the words, safe here. She looked up at the stars, let the silence wash over her, and smiled. They had tried to shut her down, tried to measure her with paperwork, but they couldn't measure what she had built. Because you can't quantify healing. You can only witness it, and guard it, and, if you're lucky, build it again.